Good afternoon, and thank you for viewing this recorded webinar, which provides an in-depth overview of the newly updated Developmental Screening Guidebook. Today's webinar will highlight the overall framework, as well as key action steps and supporting resources for early childhood programs to improve their early identification system. Let's begin by reviewing the vision for supporting young children with disabilities. Louisiana believes that all children, including those with the most significant cognitive disabilities, deserve an education that prepares them to be independent and successful in life. It is our goal that all early childhood programs, school systems, and families have a strong understanding of developmental milestones and a clear plan for what to do when children need additional support, as well as opportunities for networks to provide intentional, specialized, and related supports for children who have already been diagnosed with a disability. Research and best practices highlight 4 proven strategies to improve both the academic and social-emotional achievement of children with disabilities. Early and accurate identification plays a critical role in supporting the long-term success for children who may need additional intervention and support. The Developmental Screening Guidebook will provide valuable tools and resources to ensure children are identified early and accurately. The Developmental Screening Guidebook is designed as a reference guide on how to best support healthy growth and development of children throughout key developmental intervals and identify children who may benefit from specialized support. Because early childhood program staff, service providers, healthcare systems, families, and communities all play such important roles in providing support and services to children, it was important to highlight the resources that are specific to these support roles throughout the guidance document, and you'll see that reflected within each of the steps. Children grow and develop at different rates, and it's important to know when additional support and interventions may be necessary. Early identification leads to early intervention, which improves student achievement. Children who receive early and appropriate support are less likely to experience persistent academic difficulties. The following steps are designed as a framework as we recognize that some programs may already have elements of this system in place. It is our goal that you will still find valuable supplemental resources within each section to support an already existing process or as you continue to build out a framework. Because there is a wide range of normally developing behaviors and skills for children at this age, it's important to understand the critical milestones that children are expected to achieve, which you will find resources for outlined in Step 1. Step 2 outlines guidance for high-quality implementation of monitoring practices within everyday routines and activities, as well as look-fors when there are concerns. Step 3 outlines ways in which developmental screenings can be used to help determine if a child's learning and development is on track and inform children's strengths and identify specific areas where more support might be considered. And of course, Step 4 outlines strategies for ensuring family members are supported throughout the entire process. Each section within the guide follows a sequence of providing key action steps in conjunction with appropriate resources and are categorized for educators and providers, families, and community entities. In the upcoming slides, we will review the key action steps and highlight accompanying resources within each of the 4 steps. Step 1, understand how children develop. There is a wide range of normally developing behaviors and skills in young children, known as developmental milestones. These milestones serve as markers for when behaviors and skills typically emerge. While not all children will reach developmental milestones at the same time, it's important to understand the critical milestone that children are expected to achieve. Step 1 supports understanding how children develop with the following key action steps. Educators and providers embed training opportunities and resources that support the daily reference of developmental progression. Families learn more about their child's development at each stage of life. and community entities work in partnership to ensure support is provided to the field. Learn the Signs Act Early is a national campaign to strengthen state and community systems for early identification and coordination of services for children with developmental disabilities. This program, funded through the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, offers a suite of free resources that encourage families and caregivers to learn the signs of healthy development and learn how to act early on possible developmental concerns. You will note pertinent resources highlighted throughout the Developmental Screening Guidebook to encourage families, caregivers, and health professionals to promote the adoption and integration of Learn the Signs Act Early resources into systems that serve young children and families. Step 2, encourage development through daily routines and activities. Promoting children's development requires intentional planning and consistent monitoring. Quality programs take responsibility for providing high-quality interactions and instruction to all children, including those whose development may be delayed, have an identified disability, or whose home language is not English, by encouraging development through daily routines and activities and through the following action steps. Educators and providers participate in consistent quality training on the subjects that matter the most for supporting child development. Families continuously monitor children's development and take action when there is a concern, and community entities work in partnership to ensure support is provided to the field. Healthy development is supported when children are exposed to opportunities and experiences where their physical, social, emotional, and educational needs are met. The resources included within this step outline how developmental monitoring can embed observations of how children develop over time and whether a child meets the typical developmental milestones in a variety of domains. Step 3, establish a developmental screening, intervention, and referral process. After ensuring that daily routines are embedded with opportunities to monitor developmental progress and increase interactions that support ongoing development, it's critical to ensure that developmental screenings are also implemented on an ongoing basis to determine whether intervention or additional support is needed. Screenings are typically conducted through a research-based questionnaire, and the following key steps should be ensured. Educators and providers receive training to implement a diagnostic screener at key entry and transition points. Families collaborate with educators to complete diagnostic screeners periodically and inform practitioners and pediatricians when there are concerns. And community entities work in partnership to ensure support is provided to the field. The flowchart included in the appendix of the guide includes an outline of best practices to support the screening process. This is not a script, but a recommended guidance on how to best implement a screening and monitoring approach that is responsive to the needs of all children. If there are cases where there are more immediate concerns, then you may not follow this timeline. However, for most children, this sequence of implementing Tier 1 supports and best practices in conjunction with the screening and monitoring plan will help ensure that any children who need additional support will receive intentional intervention within an appropriate time frame. The American Academy of Pediatrics recommends developmental screening for general development, as well as for social emotional development and social determinants of health at regular intervals. The recommended guidelines can be used to determine when to screen and which instruments to use for each domain of screening. Step 4, support families in children's developmental progress. Children's development is best supported when adults who care for them work as a team. It is important that the lines of communication among all members of the team are open and ongoing in order to share information on how a child is progressing, whether there are concerns, and how those concerns should be addressed. The following action steps are included. Educators and providers develop a communication system for ongoing communication with families and caregivers and address concerns in a collaborative approach. Families know their rights to ensure what is best for their child's individualized education plan, or IEP, and community entities work in partnership to ensure support is provided to the field. It's important for programs to develop strategies to communicate children's developmental progress with families or caregivers on a routine basis. This will allow caregivers and families to develop a strong relationship and foster additional conversations if there are concerns. Strategies like routinely celebrating with families when a child meets important milestones will help them become more aware of how their child is progressing and encourage families to share what they are seeing at home with the program staff. When communicating concerns, share concerns based on objective evidence or documentation that has been collected and based on the developmental milestones of what's expected of a child at a specific age interval. Share resources regularly for ongoing communication. We hope you enjoyed learning more about how the Developmental Screening Guidebook can be used as a resource guide within your program. We encourage you to continue to familiarize with the steps and resources outlined in the guidance, as well as share the companion resource, the Early Childhood Transition Process, with caregivers and families. Contact your lead agency network to obtain customized Learn the Signs Act early milestone checklists and brochures, and reach out to brittany.braun@la.gov with any additional questions. Thanks again for joining.